Hi guys, welcome back to the Revive, actually to the Improvement Season podcast. I was going to say to the Revive Stronger podcast. This is the Improvement Season leg of, well actually no, we're just a completely separate podcast now. So
it is.
Man, I screwed up that intro. It's the last intro for, actually, is it? No, it might not be the last intro for this year. So
it is.
There's another opportunity.
Officially, so on the time of the recording, it isn't, but when it's coming out, it is. Because I think that the first is the Monday. Yeah, the first is the Monday. And normally it's always coming out there. So
I forget we record it actually quite a bit in advance of when it comes out.
Merry Christmas, by the way, guys. Hope you received some good Christmas presents and didn't really deviate too much when it comes to eating. And funny enough, Steve, Katie and I, we were just like, because who was it again? Someone just... Oh yeah, one of my athletes in the check-in said like, yeah, Pascal, I really do hope that you're not in too much of a stress over the Christmas holidays and the period and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, buddy, I actually can't recall the last time that I was stressed because of Christmas. And I don't understand why other people feel stressed about a time like this. I have my thoughts around this or why that could be the case. But most of the time, this is no different than any other time throughout the year. Also, when it comes to kind of, I don't know, buying some presents, preparing things. I mean, it's not that it takes up, well, it's kind of my second job or anything I like. So for me, what it is that I want to say is I find it funny that many people find it to be a stressful time. And because of this, it seems like such a normal thing to be a stressful period for the vast majority of people that people are already saying like, hope that it's not too stressful for you or that they are happy that the time is over. And for me personally, I was just like, Katie, do you feel stressed? And she was like, no. I don't know. We had that discussion about why people feel stressed.
I do see where people are coming from with it being stressful. I just think about people in my immediate environment. I think of Charlotte and it's just with her job, it's longer hours. And then she manages like a whole team. So she's flipping out. She got home at like 11 p.m. last night because she was shopping for hours for gifts for her team. I was like, this is crazy what they expect you to do. I
even said to Katie in that discussion, like the only people that I understand feel probably quite stressed are the ones working in retail.
Yeah, I mean, for her, she doesn't need to buy her whole team gifts and everything, but this is the sort of person she is. She wants her team to like really like feel well treated and respected, and obviously like her as a manager in that sense. And she's just a giver, so yeah, she's like bought all these gifts for them downstairs. And she was like, I spent this much. I was like, man, you're spending too much money on these people who are just like colleagues. Like, come on. But it's also the time for her, so it's definitely stressful. And for me, the only stressful thing is travel. That's basically the only stressful thing because we travel down.
But is it really stressful? I mean, yeah, I know you as a person, you know, and that also kind of applies to me. I don't really like traveling that much, but is it really stressful in comparison to other things that could be stressful, you know?
Yeah, it's not a high stress. It's just, hey, I'm not at home, so my home comforts aren't here. My usual food isn't here.
Yeah, it's more like an inconvenience.
Yeah, more than exactly. So it's not massively stressful, and it's actually really interesting because obviously social media is just like you're bombarded with what to do at Christmas, how to eat at Christmas, all of this information. And whenever we come to this time of year, I'm always like, man, I just don't have that content in mind because we're so chilled with our clients and they're just so managed. It's just like, yeah, it's a something to work around and think about and consider, but it's not, like you said, it's not a hugely stressful event that you have to have like all this information about how to like go about it, how to not let Christmas destroy your gains. It's like, no, it's just like, it's another day just to manage and be respectful of your goals and where you are as a person and how you're going to enjoy it, you know, like it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I think you could easily go back to the last episodes that we did prior to the Christmas period, and we are basically just always repeating ourselves when the time comes. The only thing, I think that there's no reason to stress out about this if you have done your due diligence. So throughout the year, you have plenty of opportunities to really be as much on point as possible. You know, when then that time comes where you need a little bit more flexibility or where it's a little bit harder to track or stay on track, then so be it. The thing is, though, that what people often forget about as well is that Christmas is not like 3 days of overindulgence from morning time to nighttime. I don't know, it could be a cultural thing though, but for us personally, it is like dinner is more so the bigger feast. Where then on the 24th, we have like a bigger feast together with the family. So just Katie and the kids. And then on the 25th, we are visiting Katie's parents and have a bigger dinner there as well. But that big dinner is not like, okay, I'm going to stuff my face so much that I'm having 2,000 or 3,000 additional calories on top of what I usually have. It's this one single meal, or basically over the time span of 2 days, 2 dinners that are different than we usually eat. That doesn't mean though that I need to overindulge, that I need to go way beyond or past my calories, that what it is that I'm doing is hyper calorically dense or anything alike. It's just like a normal meal, or if you treat it like such, because it shouldn't really be any kind of different. It is a normal meal that you now have with your loved ones and maybe friends and family, sitting down, and you're still eating at probably the same time as you're normally eating. And I don't understand why there should be anything special about this this meal itself that justifies you going way beyond your normal calories. If it's slightly above that, totally fine, right? But it could also be at any other point throughout the year.
Yeah, I wonder if it's less that meal. That meal could be a slightly higher calories because, I don't know, you might have things there that you don't normally have, like the sausage meat or the kind of, I don't know if it's Yorkshire puddings. Are they actually Christmas? Yeah, I guess they are. Yorkshire puddings, sausages, like I said, bacon, like stuffing. Maybe you have like, I don't know, turkey leg and turkey skin, and like these calories add up, and loads of like fatty gravy or something. It could be a bigger meal if you're not mindful about it, but... My dog's going crazy in the background. I apologize. But most people are mindful about those sort of things. And then it's like, okay, you have a dessert. Like, normally there's like, 3 or 4 desserts on offer. Sometimes there is, at least depending on like the household, of course. Like, have one of those. Don't like have 4. You don't need to. Where I think it normally catches people out is through the day, and the food and the alcohol that people consume through the day. So
through the day.
Yeah, people drink through like the entire
maybe it's a British thing, I don't know.
Like when we have, what's it called? Like the orange juice with like a bit of Bucks Fizz, that's the one. No, Bucks Fizz. It's like a morning drink or whatever, and then
a morning drink.
Drinking. Yeah.
Are we back to the 60s now, where it's just like, do you want to drink at 11 a.m. in the morning?
Bucks Fizz with breakfast. So that's like orange juice with I don't know if it's champagne or Prosecco or something sparkly in there. It's actually all right because it's mostly orange juice, so I quite like that. But like that's like the only drink I have in the entire day.
Crazy.
Whereas other people go a bit more wild.
It is a cultural thing, because once again in Germany it's more of a thing that it could very well be that the parents-in-law or the grandparents of the kids live in a different city, and then you're traveling there and you're spending the entire day there. For us, though, it is that we are going to Katie's parents' place at around like 2-3ish p.m. Then we are perhaps getting a coffee or so, and maybe a cake, I don't know, something like this. And then at, I don't know, 6ish, there's kind of dinner, a normal dinner. Right, of course, with then maybe a soup as a pre-dish, and then afterwards it's kind of like a dessert as well. But also there, I can understand why it's more tempting than to overeat. But at the same time, this is just, in my opinion, just shutting off completely and not really thinking. If you really think about this, because if you were kind of 2 people, so if you were to clone yourself, right? One person, so one you is standing behind you, and he's only there to keep you accountable, right? In a rational and reasonable manner. And you sit there on the table. Whenever you act irrationally, he's getting closer to your ear and whispering into your ear like, no, you don't need this. You may want this, but you know that you don't need this. You know? And I think that everyone could see themselves in a situation like this. And if we are just zooming out and we eat mindfully and take our time, really think about it. Do I really want and need this? Often the answer is no. Because at the end of the day, we're just lying on the couch being fully stuffed, and also that doesn't make us feel good either. I think having a little bit of moderation when it comes to portioning your meals is the way to go, because you're still getting what it is that you're desiring, so a piece of it, the taste of it, but at the same time you're not feeling awful, and also the long-term consequences aren't really present either, because you're then overall feeling guilty, having accumulated fat and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's like you said, basically. I think it's context dependent, individual household dependent. I can imagine some cultures and households are more focused on the food than others. Again, I'm similar to you in this regard, where I think last Christmas I was even mini cutting or something over this period of time. I was due to be this time, but I've decided to continue massing, so that hasn't happened. But if it did happen, I could manage it. Like, I just fill my plate with turkey, with veggies, and then maybe I have like a couple of potatoes. Like,
that's the thing, Steve. And this is also what I kind of preach to the vast majority of my athletes. Even the ones who are in a cutting phase, I haven't really given them a specific caloric target to hit. I've only given them a kind of max ceiling where I said, like, okay, I want you to try to not go beyond those calories. I know it's harder to then track and all that kind of stuff. However, just try your very best. Go in there mindfully, and you don't have to reach that target. It's like the upper threshold that you don't want to cross. And if you really still want to stay on track when it comes to a deficit, you don't need to know the calories that are in front of you. You're just opting for maybe a protein source and vegetables and leave the carbohydrates out. Because then it's very unlikely that you are going way past your calories.
Yeah, I have nothing. The only other thing that you have to control is then there's normally like an abundance of chocolates and sweets and gifts and stuff like that. And again, it just comes down to, man, I remember seeing someone one of these years on social media, like they bought themselves an advent calendar, and they had so little self-control, they ate every chocolate from the advent calendar. They were like, why should I have one a day? I'm going to eat all of them now. And I'm just like, like advent calendars are actually a really good test of like self-control for some people. Like, have one of these little chocolates a day. Can you manage that?
Yeah. And also here, I don't really want to come across condescending to the person or individual who went down the path or had that behavior, because I think that this is just a general kind of behavior that may not be applicable only to that situation, but in many instances as well. So you don't really need that advent calendar to prove a point that people don't really have that kind of self-control. I think it's a general problem most of the time that may present itself in many different situations. But this one is a perfect example that there's a lack of self-control and you are not a kid anymore. This is what kids do. This is what I did when I was 10 or 11 years old. But this is, you can justify it because you're still a kid, and it's much, much harder then to have that self-discipline and self-control. In my opinion, and this may sound harsh and come across harsh for some ears, of course, especially when they find themselves to be in that situation. But I think it's important to actually bring it up that you are an adult and you should be able to control yourself. Whether you do this or want to is a completely different story, but you should be able to.
Yeah. Because
it's not kind of like an addictive drug where then, I don't know, a couple of other things are happening inside your body.
Yeah, it's just the advent calendar is such a wild example to me because it's quite literally meant to be one of these little chocolates a day. It's not like, you get a box of cookies. I mean, there's no rules about like what you're meant to do here, but with an advent calendar, it's kind of like, hey, this is laid out, one of these little chocolates a day.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, to me, it's just like you said, it doesn't have to be the advent calendar. It's just a sign of a bigger issue for that person.
Yeah.
And why are they responding that way? Do they restrict themselves needlessly the rest of the year? Like, what goes on? And it's kind of like you said, if you've done your due diligence the rest of the year, if you're a little bit off plan over Christmas, totally not a big deal. It's a short period of time where you just want to kind of go through it and enjoy that time with family, friends, loved ones, and not let kind of the food situation make it suck for you. Both extremes. It'll suck if you go way overboard and you feel really shit about it because you'll just be full of regret. Or if you like over obsess and like restrict yourself unnecessarily, again, you'll be so stressed you won't be able to enjoy time with loved ones. Whereas if you go into it, like you said, with a mindset of just like, hey, let's get some protein, let's get some veggies, let's be mindful about kind of a calorie intake that I maybe don't want to go above, eat like an adult, eat sensibly, like you're going to enjoy that time. But if you haven't got the skills leading into it, I think it's going to be, that's where people like get shat on basically. And which is why, again, our clients, we've already developed those skill sets leading into this time. So it's like, hey, it's kind of a bit of a breeze. It's not like a super red flag for anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important, I think, to note that it's easier said than done for the vast majority of people. And it's something that I think both of us are very much aware of, that we are not ignorant to the fact that this is an issue for many people. But at the same time, I think it's also there important to take ownership for your actions instead of just like always finding other reasons as to why that happened. Because then you really never really take responsibility for what has happened and the potential consequences of it. There's always kind of an excuse for it, right? It's kind of the same, and this is, once again, a typical behavior that you see in kids as well. For example, Hugh is someone who has still a very hard time admitting when he did something wrong. And he's already getting to the point where he's always then discussing, and there's always a but. Always, right? And of course, we want to teach him that it's all right to make mistakes. It's all right to also then be the reason for certain mistakes, be the reason for certain consequences. And it doesn't really always have to be someone else. And it's always easier to point fingers at something instead of just like, once again, owning the situation and be like, maybe there were other factors that came into play, but I was the person still executing on it. You're not a muppet.
I think it was, actually there's been some funny reels where it's like, I can't remember what it is.
Harry
like
did one.
Yesterday.
Did he? Harry Smith did one yesterday.
But I saw one where it was like, I don't know, these are the ones where like our coach, like I just, this bag of cookies just fell into my lap and like I had to eat them or whatever. And it's like, they do like, they're like, that someone does, the coach does like a reel where they trip over and there's cookies just all suddenly fall in their mouth and they're like engorged.
There's a very funny meme. It's based on kind of a hotline. I think from, I don't know, the Middle East somewhere. It could also be that was from the Emirates or so. So there's this person sitting there on live television or so, and he's taking on calls. And then there was this one guy calling during the Ramadan and saying that he couldn't really stick to the fasting window because he tripped and fell onto a shawarma, and the shawarma and he ate the shawarma. So he basically tripped and fell on the shawarma to eat it. Right, where it's just like this turned into a meme, and it's kind of the same principle there as well. Like, you don't accidentally eat something, and no one made you to eat this unless you're Italian and you have like a grandma at home who kind of really stuffs it down your face.
Yeah. This is, I mean, the analogous example that we often go down is like cheating on your partner or something. People will come up with all these excuses like, like, I don't know, she just put her hand down my trousers and I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't stop her. It's like, I mean, you do what? You can't pull a hand out your trousers or whatever. It's like, I was drunk or, you know, like, there's ways of which it's like less in your control, like being under the influence doesn't help. But like everything, it comes down to the saying you were kind of coming to, I think it was from Melissa Davis, said like, everything is your fault. Like if you own everything, and I know I don't know, maybe it was Jocko Willink or someone like that had their book Extreme Ownership. And you know what it means just from the title of the book, like many books. It's just like own everything, like, because that just then gives you the power. And you take away the power from other people. Whereas if you're like you said, like, my grandma was offering me potatoes and, you know, I just don't want to let grandma down. So I'll have 2 of those. And then, my little sister made a dessert. So I have to eat like, you know, a slice. She gave me a slice. I should eat that. It's like, but you got to draw the line somewhere and kind of take accountability there. Even if it is like you own that you didn't want to make someone else's feelings change in a negative way that you perceived. But sometimes you have to take care of number one too. So
and I think that what it is that you said there, and I don't know if that's what Melissa also implied with that saying of like, always assume that it's always your fault or your mistake or what it was. you know? I think
everything's your fault, basically.
Yeah, I think it's a great mentality, because instead of trying to justify certain behaviors and finding reasons for it, that because the human brain, it always wants to find patterns. It always wants to understand and find conclusions as to why something happened. And that's why it can easily also create some patterns that are there, or we can see some patterns in certain things and certain situations which aren't really there, or where there's no direct correlation. And we know this from, for example, scientific literature. The perfect example that is always being thrown around is summertime and ice cream and crime rate and all that kind of stuff. That when
correlation isn't causation.
Exactly. Yeah. And because once again, that's just how the human brain works. It always wants to find patterns. And if you then always try to find reasons externally instead of internally, you will always find something. But whether this was truly the reason is questionable, and most of the time it isn't. It may have been a trigger, potentially, but it was never really the cause for action, because the cause for action is always you in the end.
Yeah, I think that's well said. With your training then, does your training get impacted by Christmas at all, Pascal?
Only because on the 25th, they decided to actually close the gym.
Most gyms are closed on the 25th, to be fair.
It's a sad day. It's a sad day.
I think it's kind of a tough one, because someone has to work inevitably if the gym's going to be open for most gyms. And so it's like, hey, I get it. Like Christmas Day, it's not the greatest day to work, and then because so many gyms are shut on Christmas Day, there's not really like the competition, or like, I don't know, it's not like a thing to worry about. But so that's, I guess your gym is also closed New Year's Day on the 1st.
It could very well be. I took a picture from the announcement. I can't really recall. But the thing is that this is also more of a cultural phenomenon here in Germany, because a lot of still rules that are in place are still from the old days. And for a very long time, the Christian Democratic Union were at the power. And because of that, a lot of those kind of religious impacted rules are still in place, especially when it comes to holidays, especially when it comes to also opening hours on for example, Sunday. I don't know how it was for you when you were over in Germany. It may have come as a surprise to you that on Sunday, no supermarket is open. And to be honest, this may have been justifiable like back in the days, but I think that it's out of date. And this applies to so many other things. Times have simply changed. The way that people are also then perceiving certain things when it comes to also availability of certain things, especially a lot of things have moved online. And so our perception of the world and what we deem as appropriate doesn't really match often the rule makings from, I don't know, the 50s, the 60s. Yeah. Maybe some things when it comes to, for example, the US financial system from the 20s. The world is a completely different one, you know? And when it then comes to something like this, where I'm just like, man, Sunday, there are plenty of people who don't give a shit about religion, who have the time finally on the weekend to then go out maybe and do the shopping because they are busy from Monday to Saturday because they need to work and all that kind of stuff. And now they can't. I can see why some people would like to also then stay at home and have a free day. But I think it is also important to give the people the opportunity, for the ones who first and foremost want to work because they don't have family at home. And this is the time where they could work and be productive instead of being forced to stay at home, right? So there are many, many different ways of looking at things. That's what I'm trying to say.
I remember hearing someone complain a little bit about, or not, I guess it was a complaint, the WNBF Germany they competed at, and they were like, what the fuck, Germany? Like, I couldn't get my food because everything was shut. Yeah. It's just like, everything's shut on a Sunday. When we were there, I don't remember that being an issue because I don't know why it didn't end up being an issue, but that would come as a shock. Like most countries, we have limited opening hours on a Sunday, but which I think is for similar reasons.
But that would be an option as well, you know, of like, okay, You can open the stores if you want to, but only then from, I don't know, from 10 to 1. But still, people have the opportunity and the chance of then going to do their week shopping or so. And those who are bored at home, who don't really know what to do with themselves and think like, hey, I could easily work here, because that would also then imply that during the week, I could have a free day where I could then go to the doctors or do other things with my free time, you know?
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that I agree with you. Like, there's going to be people that could work that day. And I imagine the supermarket then in Germany on Saturdays is just completely rammed.
This,
Everyone's
and
shopping.
The worst is, Steve, when there's a bank holiday coming up on a Monday or so, right? People go wild. It's as if they haven't ever go to the supermarket before, and that they now need to stash for the entire next year. It's absolutely mad most of the time.
Oh, that's hilarious. So yeah, I guess you're just shift around your rest days basically, because you're on a 6 day, generally 6 day per week split.
Yeah, but as discussed last week, I'm now doing kind of 3 days on, 1 day off. Okay. But I still need to shift things around, because on the 27th, part as a Christmas gift, Katie and I get an off day as parents. So Katie's mom is taking the kids, which then allows us to actually then have a date day. And we are then going to probably stay in the midst of Berlin. So we are probably going to book a hotel, because it's just a nice thing to be doing, in my opinion. Just something special about it. You know, when you're then outside, you are doing some kind of activity and then staying in the city as well. And because of that, I'm not expecting to then go train on the 28th. That could change though, but it could also be that I'm then needing to take another rest day there, which isn't really a big deal. But yeah, what about you, Steve?
Yeah, so mine is similar in that, well, thankfully, and I haven't made it a secret that I like this part about going to Bude, because in Bude, for people that know that I go down there, there's that little warehouse gym where you just need a code.
With the graffiti and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah,
or with the paintings on the wall.
Oh no, that's Yorkies.
No, but isn't there also one where it's just very quiet?
It is very quiet. I don't know if it's got graffiti on the walls though. But anyway, very similar, but it's just a code to get in. So I can train every day that I'm there, and I can train Christmas Day. Yeah. And I always like that because like it's so quiet, and like, again, I'm not doing like check-ins and stuff. So I've got the time to really just like relax and like just do the thing, which is nice. So I'll be able to train through all of that. What that just means is, because we're traveling like next Thursday, and I'm not going to be able to train that day. So I'm skipping a rest day today and taking it tomorrow. So then I can train 6 days, because I'm 6 days on, 1 day off. So Steve, I'm just moving things around a little bit.
On that note again, will it again be one of those travels where you will be driving at the end of the day, probably be stuck in traffic, and then first arrive in Bude at around like 2 a.m. in the morning?
So I've tried to make sure that doesn't happen. So we are leaving. Charlotte's got a half day on Friday, and we'll leave you on Friday. And we should already be packed on the Friday. So there's no packing that has to happen. We just pick up the car and go. So we should. And I said, I want to get to her parents by 10 p.m. But I am very skeptical that that's going to be achieved. It should be very much achievable. On the way home, though, we need to make sure that we're not too late, because we have to return the car. Although it sounds like they probably accept it out of hours, which is a bit of a downside. But we need to leave relatively early anyway to like get back. So
what's relatively early for you? Well, for Charlotte rather.
Oh, I mean, I'll be happy if we leave before midday. Let's put it that way. Yeah, that'll be good. So we just have to see. But my gym, Yorkies, is definitely shut on New Year's Day. I'm also not sure, because I'm going to see my parents and like family around that weekend as well. So I'm trying to make sure that I don't have like, I don't know, because it's that weekend before. I don't want to miss 2 training sessions in such close proximity. So I want to like make sure I can train on that weekend and not have to miss 2 sessions back to back. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But that's where I'm at. It's not too bad because I'm early. I've just, I think you're the same. Do you just restart a mesocycle relatively early? So it can be a bit more flexible. Yeah. Fatigue isn't as high. So it's not such a big deal.
Yeah, I'm in week number 2. So
yeah. So yeah, that's where that's going. And I need to figure out, like I said, I've skipped that mini cut, and my weight just wasn't budging for the longest time. And that's part of the reason I skipped it, because I was a bit leaner and lighter than I thought I was going to be. But now I've pushed my calories up to like 3,900 some days and averaging maybe between 3.8 and 3.9. The weight has moved up. So I was weighing in over 192 pounds today. And so it's getting to that, you know, when you do that and you're like, oh man, now is it going a bit quick? And I'm like, and you know, really it's not, it'll like settle back down and stuff. But I have got my eyes on obviously competing next year, and it's whether or not, like, do I do a quick mini cut at some point? But also I've got that trip in February, the cruise. And so it's like, do I want to get it in before that or after that? Because during that, I don't know, it's not going to be the best time to try and diet, probably. Maintenance / a slight surplus is probably ideal for that, because like the food is basically like, it's just not a fun time to diet on a cruise. Like, it's all you can eat. It's actually quite good food. The restaurants are quite decent. They probably
have a gym there as well, don't they?
There is a gym. It's like, but I've looked at it. It looks pretty old. They don't have heavy dumbbells, no barbells, no Smith, but they have some like leg extension, leg curl. They have cables. I think they have like a somewhat of a leg press. So basically, you can make something work.
So it's going to be 2 weeks cruise with a dirty bulk. All you can eat, just chucking down food, and then go all out during the training sessions. Because in itself, right, you have probably plenty of time during the day on that ship.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't. It's been a long time since I've been on the cruise, but yeah, you basically, some days is like complete sea days, so you're all day on it, and then other days you're at a port and you stop off somewhere and then you go off and adventure, whatever that area is. So there should be time. It'll be interesting. It'll be fine. I'll make it work.
Absolutely. Let's take a short break, and then I am, as well as the listeners, are curious about what it is that you get as a Christmas present. Maybe you know it already.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
So, Steve, do you have any kind of inclination of what Charlotte is getting you for Christmas?
So this was something I wanted to talk about before, because you brought up Christmas presents. It was really funny. I was just watching this guy do a reel of just like basically things you should ask for Christmas, and he was like, "Yeah, this is quite pricey, but you know, you put it on Santa's list and Santa gets it for you." It was just quite funny because he's like clearly an adult, like doesn't believe in Santa. It was just like, you know, Santa's real. You just ask Santa and he gets it for you. But yeah, this year, I have no idea. I know I want some aftershave because I haven't had any aftershave for ages. And what I realized is I do quite like an aftershave. Like I like if I'm going out for a meal or special occasion, smelling a bit nice. So I know I want some aftershave. But apart from that, I can't think of anything else I've specifically asked for. So, like I said, Charlotte's like buying presents for everyone else. She probably hasn't bought me anything yet, to be honest.
Steve, but don't make the mistake. Or no, do us the favor, if you're then putting on the aftershave and then you're heading to the gym, to not put on too much aftershave. Because I just had it. Like last weekend, there was this one guy in the gym. I haven't ever seen him before, and I could smell him from a long distance away. And that is, I don't know why it is me. I'm just, I don't know. I'm picking these kind of things up, and they annoy me when it comes to noises and also smells. And that was too much. He smells like someone who normally wears kind of sunglasses, is driving an SUV, is doing kind of, I don't know, a holiday on some kind of island with then also champagne and some caviar and all that kind of stuff, which is
Smoke cigars.
Something like this. It was a very, very annoying aftershave smell. And he put it on probably across his entire body. Please, I know if you like the smell of aftershave, that's totally fine, but please don't put on too much. It's kind of at the same category, smelling like old sweat on you.
So I wouldn't waste it on the gym, don't worry. I wouldn't wear it to the gym. Okay. It's only I would very much use it for special occasions.
Old sweat it is.
You know what the worst is? When you put on, I think I might have said this before, you put on a fresh, clean t-shirt, you go to the gym, and you don't even barely sweat, and it starts stinking. You're just like, this t-shirt just needs to go then, or something. I don't know. Why are the armpits stained with sweat, like stink?
It's an unfortunate situation because most of the time you have built somewhat of a relationship with that shirt. You have probably went through a couple of years, couple of good times together, and then getting rid of it it's a hard thing to be doing, to be honest.
My Das Gym one went like that, and I haven't even worn it that much. Yeah.
Das Gym.
Yeah, maybe I need to. It might be our washing machine or something. Reimburse, yeah. Send me some free gear. Yeah. I do like the Das Gym top. So
yeah, it looks good.
So then, for you, Pascal, what have you got coming? Do you know?
No.
What's Santa bringing you?
No. So Katie has. So what it is that we did is also a calendar for each one of us that was self-made. I started with it last year, and it is because Katie loves kind of massages, and it's not just like the typical sexual kind of massage. It's more like her head, the hands, the feet, and this is what the calendar was like. And she then made a calendar for me with a couple of different kind of surprises. And when it comes to Christmas presents, I think that we are, first and foremost, that day is one of those presents that we give ourselves. And we are not really hung up on giving ourselves present on that specific day. It's more like throughout the year, if there's something that we see that we think is something that we can get the other person and, I don't know, make them happy, and that we are giving them and bringing them something to show them the appreciation, then we will do this. And most of the time, also for us now in our situation, let's be real, we are parents of 2 kids, and the cost of then going on holiday is more than enough to then justify this as a present for us throughout the year, you know? Especially because we do like these kind of activities, these kind of experiences, and that's why we see something like this as maybe an early Christmas present of going to then the snowboarding trip in February.
Yeah, I much prefer that idea of like experiences, especially because, again, when you're a grown like person who has their own money, you can kind of buy what you want and need.
That's the thing, right?
And plus, for us, some of the listeners might be able to appreciate this. Like, I want some new Versa grips at some point, but I can like make those tax deductible if I buy them myself. Basically, everything I want is within my hobby. And so it all can be like, I want to get like a little tripod, as I think I said to you, for the gym. So like it's a specific like phone tripod, like stuff like that. But I'm like, I don't want to ask someone to get that, partly because I know exactly the one I want at some point. I haven't done the research, but I will. They'll buy me something and I'll be like, it might be ideal, but maybe it's not. And then again, we can reimburse it, not reimburse it.
Yeah, totally.
Like,
I totally get that.
Deductible.
I think it's quite lovely to then do something like a small present for then the kids. Because what it is that we did, we're sitting down, so everyone needed to then build their own letter for Santa. So building in the sense that we actually then did a little bit of building with different papers, different stamps and all that kind of stuff. So decorating the letter and then writing down. Of course, Tony couldn't write, so he needed to explain what he wishes him for Christmas. And then I was drawing it, or he was then trying to draw it. And then we are then sending it to Santa, you know. And something like this is the process of like, okay, I'm doing something, and it's not the craziest in the world, because I think that some people even overdo it in the sense of presents. I think 1 to maybe 3 things is more than enough for kids. More than enough. I don't think that they need like massive, copious amounts of presents. And of course, also, this is personal preference. I know of people who, I don't know, this is not to me, for me to then judge what other people are doing. For me personally, my own personal opinion is when your kid gets like 10 presents on one single event, isn't that a little bit too much? Because it doesn't really learn to then appreciate the small things. The one thing, he can't really even then appreciate the single present because there's just too much, right? And
some of them end up being wasted as well, unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we are making more out of the entire event, that is a little bit of a journey, you know? And I like also the Christmas spirit, not in a religious sense, but more like the atmosphere, the environment, because I also know how lovely it is for kids. And that's what it is that we are trying to accomplish, to build a lovely environment so that they are growing up and just associated with a good time.
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea of you and Katie doing your own like built calendars. I need to know what that kind of looks like because I actually really like that idea for me and Charlotte. Although, like I said, really busy time of year for her, so hers would all need to be like, yeah, I'll do it in January or whatever it is. Like, absolutely. I don't know. But I like that idea.
Yeah, and other than that, no real material goods. Other than that, but I can see why you then want some. Yeah, I don't know. I've been thinking about it as well, but. Yeah, I don't know. Like here, for example, the small plastic plants here in the background, these are from the calendar. So something like this.
I see. Wow, okay, so these are proper presents sometimes.
Yeah, this is something that I do appreciate. Those small, minor gestures, which isn't like that big deal, but you thought about what the other person could like, you know?
Yeah, I'm really bad at that. Like putting myself in someone else's shoes and thinking, what would they want?
Yeah, but it is also getting harder and harder the older you get, because you give, at least for us, you give less and less about materialistic goods. And the older you get, the more of the things that you wanted, you have. And the things that you want to have are the things that you can't buy with money.
Yeah, I totally see that.
I know, deep.
Yeah. I don't know, I get obviously gifts for like my parents and then like my sister's kids, like all of them. And I'm always like, man, I have to just ask them basically, what do you want? Because otherwise I'm going to get them something I think is cool for a kid, but they might think it's totally lame. And I'm like, or I get them something and it's like they've already got that. Yeah. Like, it's like, okay. So I have to just like, it's a little bit tough in that regard, like with presents. And it's, yeah, like you said, it's a bit weird because it's a materialistic thing. And I think everyone probably say, hey, rather than get me a gift, if you could spend a whole day with the family, that would actually be preferred. That could be the gift. But time is also challenging to give away like that too.
Yeah, you know? Man. And kids don't really give a shit about it anyway. No. Let's be real here. I mean, you didn't really understand what the parents were talking about what the grandparents were talking about when it comes to time is running up. I just want to spend time with my kids or grandkids. You didn't really understand because for you, time is endless. I mean, so for you, it was just like, yeah, where's my present?
Yeah, it is just life, right? You just go through those cycles. As we've spoken about many times on here, I really didn't appreciate that time was like a thing that's running out for me until I got into my 30s. Yeah. Weird. Like, just like before you hit 30, you think you're young. And then when you hit 30, you're like, I'm not young anymore. Yeah. I need to get my shit together here. No, absolutely. And kind of think about where I want to go in future.
On that note, Steve, what are kind of reflections on that year in terms of training, nutrition, and all that kind of stuff?
Good idea.
That you may have changed, that opened your eyes when it comes to kind of, once again, training, nutrition, your progress, and all that kind of stuff.
Off the top of my head, I'm going to go with some. So I'll go with nutrition first, right? But length and partial would definitely be one. So nutritionally, I am more relaxed than I've ever been, and I continue to get more relaxed. And just how important it is to get really comfortable with like following a routine and process and samey stuff, because not only do I learn from myself, but I learn from clients, and the ones who their macros change by small amounts, but every single day they are like quite different. And like every meal is different, and they are trying to play that macro Tetris. They don't have like this baseline diet that they follow. Man, they struggle. It just gets really complicated. They get way more stressed. For me, you could probably look at my MyFitnessPal, as we said, I've got a ridiculous streak. You could look at every day this year, and 90% of them are going to look almost exactly the same in terms of foods I'm eating, timings I'm eating. I don't even want to think about how many packs of frozen veg and frozen berries I've got through, like the exact same brand, the exact same ones. Because every day is the same. Like my breakfast for the last like months has just been this smoothie. That's actually something I'm thinking about when I go to Charlotte. It's like, what am I going to have for breakfast? Geez, I can't do the smoothie that I normally do. So I have to think about ways to get calories in. The number of like boxes of Cocoa Pops I've got through, these sort of things, like just putting it so much on the back burner so I just don't have to think about it. It's almost like mindful eating for people where they just go through the day, and so it's less of a stress because they're not tracking. For me, it's even less stressful, tracking a little bit, but knowing I'm exactly hitting what I need to hit. So that's been a big like reminder to me. And then previous massing phases, as people will have known, I would have purposely gone like quite low fat and high carb. I still have a higher carb, lower fat approach. Like it's rare that I go over like 80 or even 75 grams of fat, and my carbs are at 500 to 600 grams. So I'm still in that way, but I'm just less concerned about it. So I'm like, if I go out for a meal and my fats go over 100, do not give a shit. Like literally, I don't think it makes if it makes a difference, it's so small, it doesn't even matter. The stressing about it is not worth it. The social event is worth it for me. So making sure I obviously stay within a reasonable calorie intake. So I think that like that structure, but sticking to a structure that kind of really reinforces consistency and adherence, but then not stressing like the stuff that honestly doesn't matter. And especially if it comes at the kind of threat of making like the diet more stressful for you. Making it as stress-free as possible is essentially what I'm trying to say there. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
No, I think I very much like this. And it's funny, Steve, because I have the feeling we are kind of on the same path and journey. Now, the end goal may look different because you want to get a pro card. I don't. It's not important to me, but the observations that we have, the different paths that we are going then down because we are exploring something new, kind of always co-align. And it's also there when it comes to nutrition and caring less about the minute details and all that kind of stuff is also something that I've gotten much, much better at this year. Same goes then also for training related stuff. I can see that we often even come to the same conclusion due to experimentation without even having discussed it. And then we are talking about it on the improvement season and realize, oh, that is also what I did, you know?
Yeah.
So it is very, very funny to see that we are so much kind of walking down the same path. And when it then comes to this, just to once again summarize it, the macro distribution, I think, is very much not important. Like the things that he said about kind of how much fats it is that you're actually eating or how much carbohydrates it is that you're actually eating. If the pendulum isn't swinging from one extreme to the other, you won't really notice any kind of difference. If then on one day you had 80 grams of fat and then the other day you have only 50 grams, like it's like I said, who fucking cares? And if you are then claiming that you felt that in your performance, I think it has other things that were impacted, or the performance was impacted by other things other than the macronutrient ratio. And also
when you're in a surplus, like maintenance surplus, come on.
I think the only time that you are then really going to notice these kind of things is deep in a cutting phase and when you are exotically lean, because everything is just emphasized. Other than that, when you're in a well-fed environment, man, you can even, it's like we've talked about even in the past when it comes to sleep deprivation, stress. When you're in a surplus, you barely notice it. You wake up in the morning, you may feel a little bit more tired, but you can still manage to get through your training sessions, through the day. Once again, a little bit less energetic, but it's not a big deal because you're masking it with just that excess of calories, excess of energy that comes from other substrates. Whereas when you're exotically lean, you need to have your ducks in a row, because everything is just like very much emphasized. And if you don't manage things correctly, then you will definitely feel it. But how often and for how long are you in that situation? It's very rare. Maybe for 1 month out of 3 to 5 years, which isn't really a long time. All right, so I very much like that that reflection. And I think that when it comes to also this, it's kind of like, it's often overlooked because people want to always seek for sexy answers of what really makes the difference. So if I were to interview you now, Steve, and were to say like, okay, what really made a difference in terms of your progress here over the last year? And you were to tell me this, it wouldn't resonate with people. It wouldn't really be like, oh shit, maybe I should try this instead, right? It would probably be more like, so yeah, I've played a little bit around with lengthened partials. Wow, I need to try lengthened partials.
Yeah. But it's that thing we always come down to, that time and consistency of doing the big things correctly, the essentials, and smashing those. Because so often the minute details are minute to the point of which they don't matter, especially for the cost of the stress of managing them. And if they detract from the essentials at all, they're wasted, and it's pulling you away from your goals. So yeah, the only other thing nutritionally I think I've learned within the last months has been, if I aim to gain more slowly and I'm not as assertive with my calories, my appetite maintains in a better spot for longer, which makes obvious sense, right? But I came from the background of, I gained too quickly, and then I basically gained very, very slowly because I was worried about getting fat, stayed too lean, and then I found a middle ground and was always on the side of, hey, I'd prefer to be a slight more assertive than not, because I wasted so much time just staying too lean and maintaining. But now I've got to like, even, again, it's a bit more of it. Just every time I go through massing phases, they're a little bit more refined. And I've got to this level of refinement where I'm like, hey, even if I'm maintaining for a week or two, it's not the end of the world. I'm still gaining muscle, I would say, and I could still be in a slight surplus. Let's just take a little bit more time and not stress about the fact that like there was 2 weeks of maintenance. I used to think 2 weeks of maintenance would be wasted 2 weeks. Not at all anymore. And if it just means I can gain for longer, cool. I'm happy with that. I think that's absolutely an acceptable outcome. So like my appetite hasn't been an issue, and I'm pushing into territory where it normally would start to become like, I'd start feeling that nausea, that struggle to get food down, whereas now I am not. And I haven't had to like modify my diet in a way, apart from the smoothie in the morning, but that's not a huge deal. But I haven't had to like pull down fiber or pull down fruit and veg. I'm still getting like tons of that in, which I really like. So maybe the higher fat intake also contributed to that to some extent, but that's been something I've had through the year. So I would say, yeah, slightly slower rates of gain, but like very minor adjustment. Just actually the take home would be being fine with weeks at maintenance when I'm trying to be in a gaining phase and not worrying about them. There's no worry. Yeah. That would be the take home.
No, absolutely. Yeah. To me, it sounds like a little bit, or not just a little bit, but quite a significantly more holistic and rational and objective approach to just nutrition and also training probably in general.
Yeah, I think about this with training sometimes. I used to think that every week I had to add a set to like every like muscle within a session. Like I would add a set every week. I think if I didn't do that, I didn't provide a novel stimulus, a volume overload, and I wouldn't grow at my best rate. And when you just pull back in like a more rational, like, that didn't make any sense. Like you don't have to provide a novel input every week for the body to grow, because we know you just need to meet a threshold for growth. And so even if you repeat performance for a number of weeks, that growth might reduce slowly over time, but it's not like you're not growing at all, like nowhere near close. So, and then sometimes if you try and provide a novel stimulus too often, like you could just end up fatiguing yourself quicker than you needed to, and you could have just milked out a good stimulus for longer. So it's kind of similar here. Like I just don't need to like force like gaining weight every week. It's like you can just let it come a little bit more slowly. That's okay. You're not wasting time.
No, 100%. And I think that, especially from you, Steve, because you've, of course, been very much analytical and very much committed to the entire task of getting to that outcome of getting closer to the pro card. And because you're taking things so seriously, and you are putting in so much time and effort into the entire thing, I think it is especially important to listen to what it is that you have to say. And I don't want to also there downplay what other people are investing, of course, but I would rather listen to you, who has done this, who has really put in the hours basically of work, rather than, and once again, I don't want to downplay things, but rather than the genetic blessed one who is 18 and who looks already like a freak. That doesn't mean that he doesn't really know what he's talking about. There may very well be a scenario, an 18-year-old out there who has a great amount of experience. But the chances that this is the case is fairly low. And it's just about a probabilistic take here.
Yeah, I reflect upon me at 18. The advice I would have for people would be pretty bad. Even at I got even at 21, to be honest. But early 20s, it was okay. But experience, you can't, for someone who's like, if you look at someone like a Jeff Alberts, and I think we've said it before with Jeff, the more time we've been in the game, the more you respect someone like Jeff.
Yeah.
He's been at it so long. That experience cannot be like, it outweighs a lot of things in my perspective, because it just gives you so much knowledge that you can't get through like scientific papers that only run for a certain period of time. He's been lifting for like most of the longer than most of these kids have been alive,
yes.
and eating for muscle growth. So like that's super valuable.
Yeah.
I'd say maybe I leave those at the two the two nutrition ones if I've got time for training.
We could also do it then next week. Kind of.
I might not be here next week.
Oh, all right. Then go ahead.
Let me try and. Okay, I'll try and boil this down to a few, and maybe I'll do a post on this or maybe a vlog or something, because I think it's great. Length and partials, we've spoken about them enough. I don't think I need to say anything. I just think the more data that comes out, the more convinced I am. The longer I use them, the more convinced I am. The more I assess why they would be particularly beneficial, the more convinced I am. I'm not like a length and partial shill. Like I was very much in team full ROM, and it felt weird to go down this route at first, but the longer I've done it, the more convinced I am. Like, hey, these are really effective, if not just as effective as full ROM.
Yeah.
Then the other thing would be being less concerned about minor deviances in technique. I think too often I would allow myself to hit a technical failure point before the muscle was really appreciably close to failure. So being a bit more aggressive with some of my technique, I think has helped, if that makes sense. So like I might deviate technique, but if the muscle I'm trying to train is still the limiting factor by continuing with a minor different techniques, then it's okay. So my kind of range for acceptable technique is wider than it previously was. I can't think of a precise example, but like a little bit more momentum as I'm approaching failure. Maybe I'll let my my range of motion cut by like the tiniest amount as like I'm doing like a pull down or something. So even more like slightly partial. And just like getting, quite aggressive with things, like really putting effort forth and not being worried about the fatigue cost of like getting aggressive with things. I think that's paid off. It's improved my SFR, and it's meant I've had to do less volume. And I've just appreciated that, because I think you probably can, at least the literature tends to say this, you can make up like a lack of intensity with volume. I just don't think that's a very efficient use of your time. And I don't think it's probably the most effective use of your time either, and efforts. So yeah, just got a little bit more aggressive with that training and worrying about like really slow eccentrics, really like, was that pause a second or half a second? Are my knees on like a squat pattern slightly coming in, or are they staying like really rigidly out? Like just little things, like not worrying about those minor things so much, and really focusing on stimulus versus anything else. Like, am I generating that growth stimulus that I need to be? And then pushing and testing myself often. Like I'd not ran a 7-week mesocycle in a long time, and I ran that my last block. This was going to sound a bit ridiculous. I ran that 7 weeks. I then took 3 days of deloading, and I've got back into things. Who knows if I'm going to be able to survive another like 5 to 7 weeks? I'm just testing it. I'm like, do I need a full week deload? Can I take half a week? What's the limited amount of time I can get away with resting to keep training hard? And it might be a short-sighted approach, but I'm just more willing, as I've got more experience, to break away from the restraints that I previously had within my training and just experimenting a bit more, because we actually don't know as much as I think some people think we know about like the best program for hypertrophy.
Yeah,
and I'm just eager to identify it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, because it sounded to me that you're kind of breaking free from the pre-biases that you had, and now you're just kind of pushing the limits a little bit more and just seeing for yourself what's out there, instead of being also they're pre-biased by the conceptions other people have about what's right and what the limits are. Same goes for kind of, I don't know, the theory of like, okay, you should have one rest day throughout the week, for example. Or when it comes to set volume, right? Many people swear on low volumes. Some people swear on higher volumes. Like, what's actually the high capacity that you could be doing, right? Instead of just relying on what other people deem. And this is also something that we've talked about this year, about kind of the recommended set range for certain body parts, where I'm just like, especially for the lower body, 10 to 20 sets per week is most of the time way too much, in my opinion. Even if you are then having something like an ARIA progression throughout the mesocycle, it is too much. How should it then be if you have a static ARIA? I can't really see that it is then appropriate to have like a minimum of 10 sets for hamstrings would kill the most amount of people. At least in a reasonable programmed manner.
Yeah. I'm now thinking 10 sets of straight leg deadlifts.
Yeah.
Destroy you.
Yeah. And once again, to me, it sounds great that you are kind of breaking free from the pre-biases. And I think, not to say that it doesn't have its place. I think that with experience and skill, that allows you to still stay in control way beyond the border. It's kind of like getting to a new continent that hasn't been discovered or explored before. Right now, you're on that island where everyone is around. And once you are knowledgeable and old enough, first then you are allowed to cross the pond, so to speak, off into new territories, and then see what's out there just for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's really well said, because I do agree. I think like general splits, general programs that you can find online by educated people like Jeff Nippard. He's got his programs. They work so well for your intermediates, maybe even like early advanced people. But as you get more advanced, this is where that individualization becomes ever more important. And you have to experiment. Like, What does Kaz say? Fuck around and find out, like type of thing. And I'm so open to that for sure. Like I used to think, you could waste your time.
But I think it's also important on that disclaimer to not jump the gun too quickly and to acknowledge where you're at in your hierarchy of a training experience, because we often see it, and I've been guilty of that, you've been guilty of that in the past, that we are just skipping to then intermediate programs. And I think that experimentation is more so reserved for those who are more experienced. Because then you really have control over things. And it's kind of the same, in my opinion, that applies to kind of steroid use. I think that, yes, go ahead and do this if you want to. But I think you first want to also there have the ducks in a row and understand what it is that you're doing. Not just be able to do it. So not just be able to do a bench press, for example, but understand what it is that you're doing. And there's a clear difference between like understanding the movement in itself and just executing it. It's kind of like also there playing an instrument or so, right? I can definitely play it, but understanding what I'm playing to the exact moment that I need to play it is a completely different thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's excellently said. And maybe depending on how next week goes, if you, I'll talk to you off air about, well, maybe you'll do one with Mike, basically, is what I'm saying.
Maybe I'm doing a solo episode.
And yeah, you can talk about your lessons as well, because I'll be interested to hear those.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'll leave it at that, because we're
if the people are interested. Yeah, and I have an upcoming consult. So cool. Then guys, I wish you know a lovely Christmas time. We are not going to talk again until the new year. So that's also why I'm wishing you all a happy new year as well. Thank you very much for making another year with us. Like we're coming up now to, what is it then? 7 years, Steve. Next year's the 7th year of the Improvement Season podcast. Weekly
Imagine a
episodes.
7-year-old baby. Damn.
Man, It's crazy. It's crazy. So yeah, thank you very much for making it 1 year again with us, enduring the anime talk, the rambles about whatever we are rambling about. There's so much, man.
Dog shit.
Yeah, exactly.
I can only co-sign everything Pascal said. Thank you so much, guys, for listening, being here. Thank you to Pascal for being here and having these chats with me every week. We appreciate everyone. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll catch you in 2024. It's going to be a good one.
Cheers, guys.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality and we know how to do it. And we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.